We have now completed all 8 divisions, so we're moving on to new types of videos for the rest of the summer and ultimately leading up to the regular season. And today we will be predicting the top NFL defenses for this upcoming season. When discussing top NFL defenses, there's a lot that factors into it, more so than just having big name players like Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and Justin Simmons. Sometimes, and this isn't always the case, but sometimes defenses are very good statistically because of the lackluster offenses or just poor quarterbacks they have the opportunity to play against. And a good example of that is the 2019 Packers, who had 9 of their 16 games against Mitch Trubisky twice, Joe Flacco, Kyle Allen, Dwayne Haskins, Daniel Jones, Matt Moore, and David Blau. While I do think the Packers defense is good, with players like Zadarius Smith, Jair Alexander, and Darnell Savage, it certainly helps playing against quarterbacks like that. Consequently, the Dolphins had to play Tom Brady twice, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz, and Phillip Rivers in 2019. The point of comparing these two defenses from last year was to show that factoring in things like schedules and rest time, whether a team plays at home on Sunday and then has to travel 2,000 miles for a Thursday night game 4 days later, should be factored in, and it's a lot harder to predict a good defense than it is to predict a good offense or which players that will do well for your fantasy team. And that's what we're going to discuss in today's video, is predicting the elite defenses of 2020. But before we get started, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, as all support is very much appreciated. Now let's begin. When discussing elite defenses, we have to start off with the New England Patriots. In 2019, they were first in points allowed and in yards, as they allowed just 14 points per game, which included 2 shutouts and an elite season by the 2019 Defensive Player of the Year, Stephon Gilmore. Despite the GOAT Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski leaving the team, their defense will still play at an elite level, as they will get to play 3 young quarterbacks for 6 of their 16 games in Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, and Tua. And while those guys all have considerably bright futures, it is completely understandable to not play good against New England, as Sam Darnold saw ghosts when he played them last year. You should never bet against a Bill Belichick coached team, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, as he will have everyone ready to go, similar to how he did last year when they started out 8-0 and gave up just 61 points in those games. They were on a historic pace last year, and while that shouldn't be expected every year, a defense that was number 1 in 2019 shouldn't fall to the middle of the pack or even worse the following season, especially when being coached by a 6-time Super Bowl champion head coach. I think it's a pretty safe bet that the Patriots, on the defensive side of the ball at least, will still be elite in 2020. Next up is the Bears, who are known for their defense. In 2019, they gave up just 298 points, which was good for 4th in the NFL. In addition to the 6 division games they play, they also play the AFC South, who isn't exactly known for high-powering offenses. They also play the NFC South, which you could say is known for high-powering offenses with players like Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, and Drew Brees. But with playing teams like the Jags, Giants, and the Colts, the Bears very well could have multiple games holding teams under 10 or 15 points. In 2019, they held 6 of their 16 opponents at or under 15 points, and that was without arguably the best defensive player on the team in Akeem Hicks for 11 of the 16 games. Hicks is a problem for opposing offenses, as in 2016 through 18, he had 23 sacks and 53 quarterback hits as a defensive tackle. The Bears' biggest thing in relation to how good their defense will be is how good their offense will be, and that sounds weird saying that, but time of possession in relation to a defense's fatigue is absolutely critical. Being able to run the ball and take time off the clock is not only a quarterback's best friend, but a defense's as well. The Bears have playmakers at every level, from Akeem Hicks to Khalil Mack to Eddie Jackson, and assuming they stay healthy, they should be an elite defense again in 2020. Now we head to Pittsburgh to discuss the Pittsburgh Steelers, who throughout the course of their franchise history has been known for their defense. They made a bold decision last year to trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick, as they gave up a first-round pick for him, which immediately paid off. He was a borderline Defensive Player of the Year candidate and seemingly had touchdown after touchdown, and him along with Devin Bush and TJ Watt will be a great trio for years to come. Watt has 27.5 sacks in the past 2 seasons and will undoubtedly be pushing for a Defensive Player of the Year award in 2020. Fortunately, they play the Bengals and Browns for a quarter of their schedule, so they could definitely create some turnovers and limit both of those offenses for this season specifically. They also play the Jags and Redskins, who they can manhandle. In his rookie season alone, Bush had over 100 tackles, and at just 22 years old looks to be a starter for the next decade. And like the Bears, with improved offensive play and quarterback Ben Roethlisberger coming back, that should only help the defense out more this year. I don't expect them to create 38 turnovers again, but to think they can be a top 5 defense or top 10 at worst is certainly reasonable for this team. Next, we go to Minneapolis to discuss the Minnesota Vikings, who again under head coach Mike Zimmer should have an elite defense. In 2019, despite Xavier Rhodes seemingly getting beat time after time after time, they weren't too bad. They finished 5th in the NFL in points allowed and 14th in yards given up, which can be attributed a lot to garbage time yards as they had 5 wins of more than 16 points. They also finished 4th in the NFL in turnovers, and despite having a liability at best in Xavier at corner, they have playmakers at nearly every other position who again should be good in 2020. They have Danielle Hunter, who has back-to-back 14.5 sack seasons, Eric Kendricks coming off of a first-team All-Pro year, and Harrison Smith, who has made 5 straight Pro Bowls. They have playmakers everywhere, and it's never a fun time for opposing offenses to play against this defense. They also have 4-time Pro Bowler Anthony Barr, safety Anthony Harris, who tied for leading the league in interceptions in 2019, and rotational pass rusher Ifeadi Adenabo, who quietly had 7 sacks last year. They have caused problems for years under Zimmer, and Zim is a cornerback guru, so don't expect Mike Hughes, Jeff Gladney, and Cameron Dantzler to get beat for too long before they really figure it out. This will be a great defense again in 2020, especially as the offense tries to pound the rock with both Dalvin Cook and Alexander Mattison. Now we head to San Francisco to discuss the 49ers. The 49ers defense in 2019 was absolutely dominant, with the help of players like Nick Bosa and DeForest Buckner. They held 5 opponents under 15 points and gave up more than 30 points just twice, one of course coming from the all-time regular season Saints game. Despite trading DeForest Buckner, they should still be a solid defense in 2020, as Nick Bosa looks to be a superstar in the making, and Javon Kinlaw, the player that will replace Buckner, certainly isn't bad either. While Kinlaw probably won't be DeForest in year 1, he can still be a solid player, and the 49ers linebackers in Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw certainly aren't bad either. With the combination of Kyle Shanahan's offense and how dominant their defense was in 2019, the 49ers should be good for a long time. They manhandled both the Vikings and Packers on their way to the Super Bowl and proved they will be a tough out in the playoffs, as it took some Mahomes' fourth quarter magic to beat this team. Their defense is legit and will without a doubt be elite in 2020 and well beyond that for that matter. And if you're watching this, you had to know they were going to be in here at some point. Next, we head to Buffalo to discuss the Buffalo Bills, and very quietly, they had a great defense in 2019 as they gave up the second fewest points in the league to only New England. And as I said at the beginning of the video, it certainly helps getting to play young quarterbacks because they are prone to making mistakes and turnovers will happen. It's just a part of the game. They get to play 6 games this year against Sam Darnold, Jarrett Stidham, and Tua, and with players on their defense like Tre'Davious White and Ed Oliver, they will feast. The Bills will also have a solid offense to help the defense out, with players like Josh Allen, Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, and Stephon Diggs. It's hard to move the football in Buffalo in December under any circumstance, and it's even harder when the defense is playing at an elite level. Buffalo will not only have a great defense in 2020, but a great team as well. This should be a very fun year for Bills fans on both sides of the football. Lastly, we head to Baltimore to discuss the Ravens defense, who was very good in 2019 and should be again this year. They gave up the 3rd fewest points in the league last year, the 4th fewest in yards, and 7th in turnovers. Their secondary is incredible with players like Marlon Humphrey, Earl Thomas, and Marcus Peters, and they were a huge reason they gave up just 15 passing touchdowns last year, which was the 2nd fewest in the league. They play 6 games this year against Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow, and Ben Roethlisberger, and they all 3 could be good players this year, don't get me wrong, but I think it's fair to say they will at minimum struggle against this defense. They also play Washington, Jacksonville, and the New York Giants, so more than half of their games this year will heavily favor the Ravens defense. Not only do they have a great secondary, but they also have a great front 7 with players like Calais Campbell, Matt Judon, rookie Patrick Queen, and the big boy in the middle in Brandon Williams. They have playmakers at every level, and the Ravens will cause problems not only for opposing defenses with Lamar Jackson and company, but for opposing offenses as well. Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and Justice Hill will all be contributing towards the team's defensive success as well, due to keeping those guys off the field and keeping them fresh and ready to play. The Ravens in 2019 averaged over 3 minutes and 20 seconds per drive, and their opponents averaged a little over 2 minutes and 20 seconds per drive. That minute difference is huge, and over the course of the season takes a toll and will keep the defense fresh all year long. And that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If I didn't include X team or Y team or your favorite team, that doesn't mean they can't or won't be good, because they probably will be. These are just the teams I chose for today's video, and if you're still watching, I appreciate the time out of your guys' day, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day. Skol Vikes.